the same page with stability. I mean, I don't want to read too much into it, but Virtus.pro certainly, people on the panel have been criticizing the fact that they don't make plays all the time in this tournament, but we can't criticize their stability. They look perfectly stable to me.
We can see how stable they are in terms of their bans, if we're going to see the same things as we would expect from them. Virtus.pro taking on OG. The draft is on the way, and Virtus.pro's first ban is the Lone Druid, and I don't think that that comes as a big surprise, Blitz.
No, not at all. I don't think it's a hero that you want to give up, especially in a best of one. Because that's the scariest thing about a best of one is the way that captains think is they want to see the draft develop in a best of three and kind of see what happens in the internal meta of the best of three alone. But you don't get that opportunity in a match like this. You have to kind of immediately feel it out and execute your strategy pretty much blind.
Enchantress as well as the Earth Spirit, obviously they want to be able to keep that Earth Spirit out of the hands of Lil, though we did see the way that VP actually didn't immediately prioritize that Earth Spirit the last time they had the opportunity. They will be able to get the Wisp first pick. I do kind of want to go back to what Scan said, though, about VP. I was surprised if I originally placed some of my predictions. I would have had OG top 6 at least, and VP maybe making top 8, possibly top 6 run, but I actually felt pretty I didn't feel all that good about their run, where their performance here at this tournament has surprised me. They've actually been really stable with Silent, and I think that this is actually a potential new strength for VP.
We actually talked a little bit about this matchup yesterday when Virtus.pro was able to beat Vici Gaming in their first round of the lower bracket. And during that conversation it was said that it would probably be preferable for Virtus.pro to go up against Team Secret because Team Secret would be less forgivable, or rather more forgivable for mistakes, and OG would be the one that would punish them harder. Now, we've seen OG today, and I want to just hear from you if that same sentiment is still standing, or if we're looking at OG as a whole different game here, whole different team.
I mean, OG was so on fire in the first game against Secret that Moon felt confident enough to just like do some trolling at the enemy fountain, planting some trees before the game ended. But then that same kind of confidence, I think, maybe led to some of the problems in the second game. So in terms of that kind of stability, it's different. If we look at this current draft, though, I think the opening 2 picks from OG is maybe like the most stable opener there is at the moment. And we've seen teams like EG and Secret running these drafts for years now. Enigma, Tidehunter, your move. And the enemy team, they make mistakes in any kind of team fight situation. They just get so punished for it. So from the start of the draft, I feel like OG have a safer and stabler looking position, and that's kind of scary if you're Virtus.pro for me. I don't know, Blitz, do you have like ideas about this Enigma Tide thing that most teams seem unable to beat? Like, what are you meant to do to beat this sort of setup?
I think the setup right now is pretty strong just because Enigma's really hard to punish in the jungle. Like, even Naha said, teams have to punish junglers, and I think PPD fired off a kind of sarcastic tweet where he's like, how? Like, tell me how then? And you know, what are you supposed to do when Enigma's just farming? You can't really play active past the map. You risk a lot trying to invade. But I think Tidehunters, where you're going to get abusive, if you pick a carry that can go one-on-one against them, you take a carry that, like the PL in the other game, where it's a lot more difficult when the Tidehunter just goes up against them. It was like, what is it? LGD versus MVP, where they had the safe lane OD, then eventually the 2 supports from MVP rotated, and then ROTK had a matchup where he was tied against OD. Like, what are you meant to do against that? And then you're looking in a pretty good position, because Tidehunter can't really go anywhere. Like, you force him into the jungle, then your 2 supports get a lot of positioning. I think IO OD is a really stable opener as well.
Now, looking beyond the laning stage, you have got the teamfight potential with Tidehunter and Enigma, and it is very strong. You also have the OD on the side of Virtus.pro, but you'd need a bit of extra kick in order to feel confident enough to actually take a 5-on-5 team fight, I would imagine, if you're Virtus.pro. Which hero would you feel like that would fit with them? Or would you suggest for them to basically skip team fights altogether? Or rather, not draft as heavily for that and just go for pickups and split push, perhaps?
I think you just play the MVP hit and run style, where it looks like you're 5-manning repeatedly, but it's more just an illusion. Like, you take these little fights, you force OG to blow individual cooldowns, and then you just keep playing around the map and making it hectic and difficult for the Tide or the Enigma to set up. If you run into that lineup, like the Tide plus Enigma, it's really hard to team fight into, especially since most Enigmas just go for the same build, right? They're going to go for the early mech. Like, one of those 2 will guaranteed get a mech. And that alone makes it really difficult to fight into, because then VP has to decide, okay, do we get a mech carry of our own to battle into this? But I think the better solution is just avoid it altogether.
And you also got to try and make sure that even if you lose the fights when they cast their spells, try to minimize what the casualties are so that in between their big cooldowns, you can get a lot of value off the map, take down objectives, move around when they don't feel confident to actually close your outs.
Funny thing is, I would have said that that if I hadn't seen VP the other day, that I would have said that this kind of opening from OG is actually really good versus VP because of the way that they're naturally aggressive, but you have so much potential team fight as well as high ground that OG always have that out, essentially, to be able to, if the game does go disastrous in the beginning, VP still have to go high ground. And I felt the same thing. It was the matchup. I was trying to find it. It was the matchup MVP Phoenix versus LGD. I thought that the playstyle that MVP showed us, the way LGD opened their matchup was Tidehunter and Disruptor. Wasn't really a big fan of the Disruptor, but it was that same kind of idea that the Enigma brings you, right? Which is a hard hero to push high ground against that gives you a lot of team fight potential. The problem is that both MVP Phoenix, they already showed they switched up their playstyle in that specific game, and then also in just this tournament, VP have shown themselves to actually potentially go much more mid to late game, where they used to be a lot more aggressive with Illidan.
OG's draft to me just looks like an EG draft at this point. It's, I mean, which is not too bad considering they usually beat Virtus Pro EG. I mean, they've had a bunch of close series in recent times, but it's been a match that EG has usually been favored in. And these three heroes together is something that EG did at Starlight. It's something that I think they did in this tournament as well. I remember at Starlight there were some nice plays where they were swapping. They kept killing Puck by swapping it into Black Hole, like sticky heroes you can go for that way.
Well, now the Void pickup for Virtus Pro. What do you make of that hero lately? I
think it's like you have OD. You want something that will either save him, or you want something that'll set up for him. Almost always. Like I think OD, you need a hero like Oracle or something that has AoE, just a control factor, because you want to get as many free hits as you can before you pop the ulti. I think Faceless Void as well is one of the better high ground potential heroes in general. It's really difficult just to push into the Void, and I think for VP, this is pretty stable. It kind of tells OG, okay, no matter what happens, like, maybe we get mid-game control with OD plus Faceless Void plus IO, but if we don't, we can backpedal, go for the late game, hold our high ground, because these three heroes independently are very good in the late game.
There's something interesting to me about these heroes, the IO, the OD, and the Void, which maybe doesn't stand out immediately, but they all have these interesting defensive capabilities. You know, the Void can obviously jump away and heal itself, the IO is going to heal people, but the OD, which I think has been understated in this tournament, and I've seen time and time again, teams losing out when they try to kill an OD or try to kill a hero that's near an OD, and the defense of Astral being used, and then your team assembles, gets there, because it's such a long duration. It actually happened against OG earlier in the day in that secret game, where I believe it was a OD defensive Astral on Eternal Envy, and then the IO brought back TB'd into heal, the Dazzle came in with the Grave, and suddenly you've prolonged the life of the Draw Ranger that was like on red HP for another 10 seconds. So I think, I don't know if you agree with me, I think that it's something that's maybe overlooked sometimes when people initiate into a team with an OD, that's actually a very powerful defensive tool.
I mean, everybody knows about it. It's just, what are you going to do about it? Like, a lot of ODs just... Yeah, it's the issue with playing with this hero. You saw when Alliance played against Liquid, Fada got gone on in the mid-fight. It was like 15 minutes or something like that. Then they try to blow him up. And he just astrals himself, blinks out, resets the fight. Then the Tidehunter comes in and ravages. It's just a hard hero to kill, but most importantly, like, you want to take him out because you don't want him to get a lot of stacks and then ulti your entire team.
Or even just ulting straight up, and that huge loss of mana can be pretty disruptive as well. I like this follow-up from OG, the fourth pick. Death Prophet gives them a lot of good high ground potential. It's a hero that can go against the OD in the laning phase, and in general, I think Death Prophet is still one of the strongest mids that you can get in this patch that allows you to be able to go high ground pretty quickly, and all that AoE disables just makes her even better.
Yeah. Seemed a bit like No-Tail's Death Prophet struggled a bit against Weeha's OD early on, although there was a Drow Aura involved there as well, and they killed him once or twice.
I mean, it's an OD. Any hero's gonna struggle against it, you know.
I think DP does okay-ish, but yeah, the Drow Ranger makes things pretty hard. I like the Lina pickup a lot, though. They need something that can burst in the Chrono, because otherwise the turnaround potential from Tide, Enigma, Venge, DP is a little bit too high. They just needed a hero that can instantly burst somebody down, but...
By the way, the history on this match I was checking before, these teams played each other at the MLG LAN, which is quite a long time ago now, and OG won, I think 2-0 pretty convincingly. They played again at Frankfurt. It was a very close match. OG beat them 2-1 and actually picked Miracle Anti-Mage in the deciding game. And then at the Summit, Virtus Pro just dumpstered them 2-0, complete stomps, 2 in a row.
Yes.
So nothing this patch as far as I know, but
No, but in the summit, it's something to be said that OG at that point hadn't been home for like 1.5 months, and they did also say already that they felt a bit burned out. I think we're looking at two teams that are in different shape as what they were in now. OG perhaps a bit stronger shape than they were at the summit, or at least on paper. Virtus Pro, I would say a little bit lackluster compared to the dominating Virtus Pro they were around the time of the summit. But for this match, I would consider it an even matchup, but does the draft look like it's going to be an even matchup?
I don't know. OG's 5-man potential is so strong.
Yeah.
They have a lot of things covered. The one exploitable thing for me, if I look at this draft, is I think it's a little bit immobile, and at the same time, you're very cooldown reliant. Whereas VP, once they get like Ags on Void, they can pretty much fight anywhere. OD ult is just kind of icing on the cake.
Cap, who's going to take it?
I really like OG's draft as well. I feel like the Sven was, I think it was a really obvious pickup. I didn't actually like the Spectre so much. I think that OG just played for the big game at this point in time. When you've committed to a Death Prophet, Sven is one of the perfect safe lane carries to work with DP. It's an initiator. It gives you Warcry, the big boost in armor. Even if there wasn't any big physical damage heroes just yet for VP, you knew it was going to come up eventually in their carries. So I think that OG just outdrafted VP a bit, and because I already felt like OG was slightly the better team, I'm gonna say OG will take it.
I think OG's draft is a lot easier to execute and a lot harder to make mistakes with. But I think VP's draft, if they play very well, could definitely be the stronger draft. And I suspect they are going to. I think they're going to bring the A game. So I'm going to call VP.
Okay, we're going to find out who is going to be keeping their tournament lives alive. It is OG taking on Virtus Pro with OD Pixel and Draskell.
Prepare for battle.
Here indeed it is, myself OD here with Andy, and we're here with another best of one. VP going up against OG here in the lower bracket. The crowd, they look to have calmed down, because whatever happens, a Chinese team isn't losing this game.
That's definitely true. I think that they really cheered for VP when they came out, right?
They did. There was more
really
cheering
loud.
for VP. They love VP. Maybe they were getting them confused with VG. I mean,
it's possible, you know?
It's possible.
It has a V in the name. It's close enough. But as the panel was saying, I definitely have to favor OG's draft. The ease of execution is going to be there for sure. This is a lineup where Death Ball is the name of the game, and I also really like the fact of how they picked the Venge and when, because it shows that they understand. Obviously, VP picked Void into Venge, which I also thought was a little bit strange, but they knew that they were going to be picking Death Prophet no matter what, and it's just a very nice defensive mechanism because VP don't really have a counterplay to that. You can just sit so far away and prevent it, but we're going to see some dewarding very early on. VP managed to get that offlane ward down, which obviously is going to be beneficial to them. It's going to make Moon's life a little bit harder. But I gotta say, man, OG's 5-man is probably about the most terrifying thing that I've seen all day.
Yeah, so once they get it online, once they've got this level 6 on the Enigma and the Tide, it's going to be terrifying for VP. And talking about VP, we've got some very VP-ish stuff that's going on. It is G on his core Lina. They're bringing FNG in that classic Winter Wyvern, a hero that some teams have kind of meddled with this patch, but obviously not as much as it has been with it in the past. Is this the key to winning a best of one if you're VP?
Well, I think that G is always good when you can play explosive heroes. So picking up the Lina, I think, is a step in the right direction. OD's a solid hero. Like, you can always have a good performance, but it's not that kind of hero that you can make the flashy plays with, hit the big stuns, make sure you're targeting the right heroes in the fight, and just kind of blowing them up. So I do think that it's very good for VP to put G on a hero like this, because he can actually shine.
Looking at the lanes and appreciating the fact that OG obviously have Fly on the Enigma in the jungle, do VP have the tools to do anything about this Enigma, or is Fly going to have a grand old time at the beginning?
They're not really going to be able to pressure him at all. I mean, you have an Io and a Winter Wyvern. Neither of these heroes by nature are going to be playing too aggressive, as we can see FNG just trading a little bit here with Moon. But as far as trying to punish, it's not really about the punish for VP. It's more about the fact that we have Winter's Curse, you know, so we have BKB interrupt on Black Hole. We have Chronosphere, which we can kill the Titan. So we have natural counters to the two biggest teamfight contributors in terms of control on the side of OG. So I do think that VP have the tools. It's just about if the execution is there.
Okay, and well, we'll talk about the fact that in terms of both of the drafts, you've got a core Sven and VP with the core Lina. In terms of timings this game, OG, as you said, if they get the 5-man going, it's going to be hard for VP to stop. But they do have a decent amount of wave clear with the Wyvern, with the Lina. They have got ways to deal with OG if they start coming in hard at the start.
Yeah, I mean, the timing is going to be all up to when you hit level 6, when you have the mech going on the Enigma, that's when OG are going to be feeling the most confident and starting to try to pressure and take towers. I think VP's timing, if you can get a Laguna on somebody and get a couple of hits from the OD, you can kill a hero extremely fast. It's just a matter of, can you actually get the sphere out in time? I think the timings for OG are going to be a little bit faster, and because of the fact that Enigma is free farming, it is a tiny bit of a concern here for VP, but as long as G doesn't get ganked, which I doubt he will, given OG's lineup, I think it's going to be alright.
FNG heading over towards this mid lane here. See if he's able to achieve anything for the side. I don't know if he's going to live the courier snap. The courier is actually coming down on the lane here. FNG, if he comes around, this could be great timing. He flies over here, No Tail. He'll start to move it away. FNG just gets the one hit in. So good job No Tail was on top of that, because OG just on the verge of potentially losing that courier at 2.5 minutes in.
Especially when you have these very static laning phases, it can always be huge to snipe the mid's courier. Both heroes have a pretty equal amount of wave spam. Obviously Lina has Dragon Slave and then No Tail's got the Crypt Swarm, so if you can kill the enemy mid's bottle, that really tips the lane in your favor, which would be great to stop the DP from getting early game farm. And then of course that hero becomes squishier and you can try to blow her up inside of the Chronosphere once you actually get that going. But little cheeky stuff coming in here from FNG, just leeching some experience. This is actually really annoying for Moon.
And he just so can try and find his level 2 here on the Wyvern. The mid lane matchup still fairly even, 17 for 4, 16 for 2 between the respective Lina and Death Prophet. So nothing too outstanding there in terms of lane dominance. Other than that, across the map, is there any lanes that you're kind of surprised with the outcome at the moment, or is this pretty much what we expected from the draft?
Well, the Tide's not really getting much, but I suppose we could expect that. Like safe lane OD, you can orb walk the hero down. I mean, Kraken doesn't really do a whole lot for you in that off lane position, and I suppose you could say the same for, you know, DK Phobos. He's also kind of struggling, but this is a double stun lane. You can't really undo the harass.
They really want to try and do something about No Tail mid. They're moving forward. They've got the help of the IO. And No Tail just a little bit too speedy. Flies there to back him up if they were going to continue. And as we can see, in terms of ganking the mid lane, it's hard for VP's lineup.
Well, it's difficult, but they're at least pressuring. I mean, sometimes you could say that not getting the kill is a bad thing, but at the same time, No Tail's not able to spend the entirety of his time just sitting mid, even though he will be able to secure bottom rune with relative ease. He does have a lot of members nearby in the bottom lane, so the only concern that I have for VP is that the execution is hard for them.
Top lane Moon, where he was just one hit away from dying there. You talked about the all balking OD, and he keeps going in. No mercy at all here from the OD. So Moon's got to be ever so careful on this top lane, because Silent, he's ready to go in every time and smack him hard with the Arcane Orbs.
You can't really do anything as Tide in this matchup. You get hit. I mean, he doesn't have any mana. The guy's got minus 24, 27 intelligence.
He's brutal.
He can't even use a spell. So, yeah,
he doesn't even know how to say the name of a spell.
Yeah, it's true. He is not the smartest Tide Hunter I've ever seen.
G in the mid lane there, just with the combo, pushing No Tail back. And now maintaining a little bit of a lead here, but it's still incredibly close here between G and No Tail. And the two safe laners, 32 for 5 on the Sven at the moment for Miracle, and 32-16, so just the kind of the added bonus there with the denies, the fact that they are being able to shut down the leveling of this Tide. But still, you got to remember OG, they're going to be fine with that, but the fact that they have got Fly, he's level 6 now in the jungle, and as expected, total uninterrupted farm here for Fly.
Yeah, it's a really good point you bring up in regards to the Enigma being level 6 already, because if you compare that to the support levels on the side of VP, FNG just hit level 2 and it's 5 minutes in. Of course, the position 5 sometimes has a really hard time getting the early levels before the cores start to rotate around, but this is going to be an example of if OG want to try to go for the super early game pressure, like we see the Soul Ring completed on Fly, if he's going to be going for the early mech or if he's going to leave it to the Tide Hunter, we have yet to see. But that's basically the difference between their lineups, because OG's offlane is doing significantly worse than VP's, but because they have a jungler, all that difference is pretty much negated.
Oh, mid lane. Let's see if they can step it up at Crit and Fly, moving into position behind No Tail. Let's see if they can get some sort of a reach around. They've also got Moon on the Tide ready for this fight. They want to contest the 6-minute rune and they'll start to move in. Crit with a magic missile onto G. Fly coming around as well. No Tail from the high ground. They're going to gush. The Silence what to do in the edge of Black Hole. Dragon and G and Lil actually tapping the cross into the Black Hole. He says, take me with you. And No Tail says, yo, certainly will. Double kill there for the Death Prophet. And I'm not quite sure what the plan was there from the IO.
Well, I think he wanted to save his mid. I think that was the original intended plan, but as we saw, talk about your all-time backfires. Interesting part about that is they even had a ward. That's a little bit strange, the fact that he decided to tether into that, but this is going to be fantastic for OG. They get the exorcism going, they're going to be pressuring the mid-tier 1, and the teamfight ultimates, they are up on VP. If they want to try to go for a Chronosphere, they can, but as it stands right now, the OD is not skilling his ultimate, so there's not going to be any Sanity's Eclipse. OG in the end, they only get a little bit of chip damage on the tower, but First Blood does indeed go their way.
Absolutely, and it's got to be scary. If OG do start to continue to gain this early momentum, the lineup's going to become very, very hard for the side of VP to fight into. And the fact that the double kill credited to No-Tell on his Death Prophet, that's going to give him a boost now. Bottom lane, moving in onto Phobos. Miracle with the hard hits and his God Strength. He's the third kill for OG, and they're certainly not slowing down the pace in any of these lanes.
And that's one of the biggest problems I think that Void suffers from is Stunlock is much better than it was in the current version of the hero than it was the previous one, because you could just get a random backtrack and stop a kill like that from happening. But nowadays, if you get Stunlocked, you are gonna die every single time.
Off the back of that, doing a significant amount to this tier 1 on the bottom lane. Got 1100 in now on Miracle. I mean, does he finish off the full Helm with the Dom here, or are we going to see him go? Yeah, okay, yes.
I mean, if you look at his skill build, he's maxing Cleave. So if you're maxing Cleave, Helm of the Dominator is pretty much the go-to, just to ensure that you can get the most out of your Helm of the Dominator in general. But we're talking about stacking. VP did clear out 2 stacks. That puts G at level 8 right now. The Wisp is about halfway to level 6. And I think with the Chronosphere available, Sanity's Eclipse now skilled up on Silent with max points into Orb, this is actually the stage in the game where VP can start to fight themselves.
And again, top lane Silent moving in onto He does the maths as Silent. Mathematical genius, knew the damage was there with the ultimate. And his sanity was eclipsed there, Moon.
This might be one of the roughest off lanes that I've seen Moon have. I mean, he's only got 16 CS, and to be honest, the majority of this lane was actually a 1 versus 1. So the IO was rotating around, stacking the jungle, FNG was trying to snipe the courier, sitting mid. It was pretty much just a Tide versus an OD, obviously going to be favored to Silent in that regard, but even with having the Iron Talon and being able to kill the jungle creeps, he is still not 6, and it's about 8 minutes in. You compare that to Void, who's almost 7. Even with the death, I would still say, all in all, that's a little bit better for VP, but one of the biggest issues with offlane Void is if you don't have damage outside of the sphere, your ultimate doesn't really shine. They do have Laguna Blade, they do have OD, so I think that they have a lot of ways of killing inside of that sphere, and also having FNG eventually getting up that ultimate and being able to counterplay things like Black Hole and Ravage from a very long distance. These are going to be, I think, the biggest tools for VP to deal with just the mass team fight that OG are going to be bringing.
Yeah, one thing I really like about VP's lineup as well, you look at the fact that they've got the Void and the Wyvern. That's 2 ults, and obviously with the Wyvern ult, regardless, you're not doing damage, but you're still stealing intelligence. So that's going to give OD a lot of time in these team fights to make sure that the Sanity's Eclipse comes absolutely smacking down on OG's heads.
I mean, he got 20 damage and killed a Tide Hunter 1v1. Like, he didn't even skill Astral. That's the crazy part. Like, a lot of the time when you get solo kills, you have at least 1 point, because you auto-attack like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
you Astral to catch back up, and then you keep hitting. But the fact that he's able to just get that kill straight up just is owed to the damage that that hero actually does. But I do feel like VP still have a solid chance. They're still waiting on the Wisp level 6. FNG is the struggling guy in this game. He's only 3. But with the kind of team fight that VP have, with the Chronosphere available and being able to pop somebody with a Laguna Blade, you can get level 6 relatively quick, especially if you're timing your pushes around things like Moon not having Ravage yet because he's only level 5, or the Death Prophet's ultimate's going to be up in about 20 seconds, and obviously they'd used Black Hole a little bit ago to kill those 2 heroes from VP mid. So if you can hit that timing and use your ultimates in a similar fashion as OG, I can see this game very easily being very even.
Well, it certainly has the potential to end up going that way, but we're still early days, 8 minutes in here. OG with the advantage in terms of kills. The fact that they've got that Fly Enigma is certainly putting them in the driver's seat as such at the moment. But as you said, we're yet to really kind of see the full potential of VP once their ultimates all come online. Looking at Silent on the OD, he's got 1400 gold now, thanks to that kill onto the Tide. What's he going to be thinking about as his first item? Is it going to be a straight up rod of Atos here for the man, or anything else that he needs against OG's lineup?
I think Atos is a really solid item in this game. Oftentimes, it's very timing oriented, right? Because if you get an Atos and people have BKB, the item is obviously worthless. And that's just like the prime example of some games that we've seen so far here at the Major, is people buying an item and then BKB comes out and that item is suddenly just, it doesn't even matter anymore. But the nice thing about buying it on OD is that not only does it give you the damage with your orb, but your ultimate also hits harder, which means that you're not necessarily relying on focusing that BKB target as much. And say you get like a 2 or a 3-man sphere, you're going to have your Venge basically deciding who lives and who dies, because whoever doesn't get swapped is pretty much going to be a goner inside of that sphere if you don't have a nice defensive play coming out from your teammates. So I think Atos is nice. Not really any escape mechanisms either on the side of OG. So if you want to go for chasing potential as well, that's also a really nice item to have for that too.
In terms of the side of OG, we've got to look at the fact that Fly, he's very close to that mechanism, has the headdress, has the buckler halfway towards that recipe. So it is going to be around a 10-minute mech, which we've come to kind of expect from an Enigma that does have as free as time as Fly as in the jungle. And the fact that he was able to make 2 kills happen there with the first use of the black hole. But we are back underway here, ladies and gentlemen. The pause is over, and we will continue. BP smoked up on the mid lane. They've got their eyes on No-Tan, and G sets it up with a live strike. Phobos jumps straight in. They'll drop the Chrono, the Laguna. There's no messing around here from the boys in Virtus Pro. They'll take themselves the kill onto No-Tan, and a bit of money then to the piggy bank of G.
And there is no issue dropping that many ults on the Death Prophet, because with that hero dead, the pushing potential from OG just disappears. I mean, sure, you still have conversions and whatnot, and Venjora is nice, but you're not going to be trying to pressure any towers coming out of VP if you have that hero in particular dead. So if they can make that trade, you know, 2 ultimates for a Death Prophet, I think VP do that every single day of the week.
And now Moon, he's managed to find his arcanes. Obviously a bit of a slow start here for the Tide. He's just about to hit level 6 though with the next creep. And in terms of the build on Tide, it feels like we've seen a lot of different Tide builds this game. This tournament. We've seen Tides goes first for the drums. Obviously the more common one for the mech. I don't think we've ever seen a Tide go straight blink in any of the games. It's normally the mechanism that they opt for. But is there any reason why Moon would go for the drums over the mech, as we did see in a previous game here in the playoffs?
I think usually when you buy drums, it's when you have a team that's going to be 5-manning a lot, and you already have a dedicated mech carrier. Yeah. So obviously Fly is going to be the mech buyer this time.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so
we could see Uno getting the drums?
Yeah, I think drums are a possibility. It's just having the movement speed aura is really nice. Especially when you have heroes like Death Prophet who are pretty reliant on being able to chase out. You just let the ghost follow them. You know, you throw out a couple of spirit siphons on people, and you can just get kill after kill if you have the momentum going in your favor.
On top lane, No-Tan using the exorcism here to take the tower. Looks like Virtus Pro won't be doing anything about this one. They'll have to let this one drop. They do have 3 heroes around here in the jungle. And it doesn't look like they want to try and make a move. They're just going to use this time to allow DK Phobos to pick up a bit of farm on the bottom lane. He's getting a bit of space. Miracle. It looks like he's going to be going for the armlet this game on the span. Not something that we see all the time.
Huh, this is actually very interesting. It's pretty good because they only really have one thing that does instance damage, and that's the Frostburn from Winter Wyvern. So I guess you could technically say that Spirits hit often enough to where it could almost be considered something like that. That's very hard to toggle against, but it is also an extremely stat-efficient item in terms of what it gives you for the cost. Not very expensive at all, 2,500 gold. And it lets you hit extremely hard in conjunction with things like God Strength. So a little bit of a different choice, but it does also make you extremely tanky. Is the only other person on the team who really wants the front line besides the Tidehunter, because No Tails, if he's get focused on the fight, he's going to be swapped for sure. I think they're more okay letting a Miracle die in team fights than they are the Death Prophet.
And OG, just pressure they're putting on there within a minute, taking the top tier 1, the mid tier 1, and now they're hammering on the mid tier 2. They've got everything apart from the Exorcism up and available if VP do want to try and fight into it. At the moment, VP, they're just trying to make the most of the fact that OG are grouped up mid. They've still got a Void on the bottom lane picking up some of the XP, and they're smoked up. They won't try and wrap around onto this. But they are fighting into pretty much the full force of OG. Exorcism still offline for 40 seconds. Maybe that's the opening that they want to try and abuse. FNG leading forward. He's going to find Crit on the back lines here. And wow, at the same time, Silent trying to move it onto No-Tail. They get a light strike onto Moon. Miracle running around, looking for the perfect stun. He gets onto FNG. Ravage coming through from Moon, catching out Silent and FNG at the same time. They're looking to try and find the Wyvern. FNG will be the first to fall. Black Hole from Fly, holding Silent in place. They need the rest of OG's coming, but Phobos, he drops the corner to the Enigma. They'll take down Fly here. One more slap there from the IO. Lil finding the kill there onto Enigma, making it a 1-for-1. And off the back of what was nothing really more than just an awkward engagement between those two sides, there's only one death for each team.
I think that VP are going to be super happy with that exchange. Like the Ravage only ended up, actually didn't even get the kill, did it?
Just called Silent and FNG.
Yeah, and then they solo Black Hole as well and get nothing from it. And VP are going to take this opportunity to just head straight into Roshan. By the way, I misspoke. Armlet's 2320, not 2500. I think they changed the cost again at some point. But either way, when you use 2 huge cooldown ultimates like that, you don't get a tower. You don't even really get, like, you got nothing from that engagement if you're OG, and your team is completely reliant on your ultimates. So now, giving away this Roshan, this is a gigantic swing of momentum in VP's favor.
They're going to be very happy. Very happy indeed. Big objectives been hit there for the side of VP. OG still feeling confident with their movement. They're in the dire jungle at this point. Maybe seeing if they can get something going on to the top tier 2, but the ward is down there from VP, so they will know the whereabouts of OG if they do come around the northern bit of the jungle. G still picking up his farm, working towards the Yule Scepter, very close to it. And some big things happening here for VP. They're keeping the game close, 4 for 3 at the moment, 13 minutes in. It's a best of 1. We can expect both teams just to fight to their bare teeth, and we're getting nothing less at the moment. 1.5k favored in XP for OG, but it's at this point very small things. 4k in terms of gold. That's obviously thanks to the fact that OG have a little bit more map control thanks to the towers they've taken.
Yeah, I mean, their lineup, again, they talked about it on the panel, their 5-man is just ridiculous. You don't want to fight into Exorcism, Ravage, Black Hole. Those are some of the 3 biggest ultimates that you can ever put on the same team, and the fact that they're even able to lane it successfully kind of is just spoken of how this patch is played. It's just you either go 5-man Dota, or you have insane early game tempo. Those seem to be the 2 extremes of what we've seen so far here at the Shanghai Major, but like you were saying, people just kind of going a little bit more passive right now. They've taken all the tier 1s on the side of OG, whereas VP still have the middle and the top tier tower to go. But I think that VP, I don't know if they're necessarily super comfortable going towards the late game, but they have some options. Like, you have a lot of Wisp plays that you can do. You can relocate with even the Void, the Lina, or the OD, the 3 decent targets. You can start team fights that way. If you get the aggressive vision going, you can definitely pick apart OG much more than they can do to you. Like, their initiation potential is basically just, we're going to walk up to your tower, pop Death Prophet ultimate, and hope that you run into us. That's the way that they start fights.
I mean, I'm looking at, of course, Miracle's Fen at this point. He's got the Yasha, the Armlet, and the Helm, the Dominator. I mean, against VP's lineup, does he need to think about picking up a BKB anytime soon? I'm looking at them, and the fact there's obviously the Atos on Silent Sodi as well. They've got the kite potential VP pretty heavily.
Yeah, he's gonna need BKB. It's one of those games where you feel really bad buying the item because you still have to worry about, you know, Winter Wyvern ulti being focused on you, which goes through BKB. You have to worry about Chronosphere, eventually Ags, Lina as well. Like, all these things penetrate BKB, but like you were saying, there's just way too much ability to kite to not buy the item. And the other part too is you have to think to yourself how much extra damage he's going to take if he doesn't have it. He's going to get blown up by Silent or G. And I mean, obviously G is going to eventually be able to kill him anyway, but as it stands right now, VP going for a smoke here.
We have it, eyes onto the mid lane. No tell. He's there at the moment and he doesn't have any friends around in the nearby neighborhood. They'll set this one up. The stun a little bit off the mark, but it doesn't matter. Laguna comes through. They're going to kill a no-tail. Phobots moving forward, looking for more. Chronosphere to crit, and there's Silent. 1-2, give it a third one. They'll take down Crit as well there on the Vengeful Spirit. 2 kills for the side of VP off the back of a very smart smoke.
Yeah, abusing the fact that they have the Aegis advantage, just smoking right past, getting through undetected. I'm really surprised that OG didn't see that coming because they have a lot of wards up right now, and there was no one showing. Like, that smoke was almost obvious, and the Venge was a little bit too far away.
Oh, there's a relocate coming in. They're looking for Miracle here, and they'll set it up at FNG with the ultimate. Silent starting to steal the intel. Miracle, he gets the stuff. He's looking for the TP out, but the light strikes there. He's not going to make it. Miracle down for 50 seconds. Great play there from VP, and another kill off the back of it. They do end up losing the eye in the mid lane as No-Tail bursts down Lil. But they'll take that trade anytime, shutting down Miracle. And Moon, he could be in trouble as well. He pops the Ravage, he's a 3-man Silent. Fly coming in, he has got the Black Hole here, but they don't even need it at the moment. They'll take down Geo and Delina, they'll turn towards Silent, they'll pop the Aegis. Phobos coming back in, pops the time dilation, but it looks like it is going to be Silent going down again. He's surrounded by 4. Spirit Siphon from No-Tail, they begin to suck and they'll find him. No, Astral keeping him alive for the time being. He's trying his best to keep himself in the game, but he'll still go down. Double kill for Crit. And off the back of a few very successful pickoffs for VP, they just take a really bad fight mid lane, and suddenly OG, they regain most of the momentum that they just lost.
A lot of misplays there. Like, taking the fight in the first place, I understand you want to abuse the fact that you have the Aegis advantage, but you're missing Chronosphere, which is your best teamfight utility. Like, you have damage, but you don't have any control if that ability is not up. And FNG, that... Oh man, that Cold Embrace was actually so fight-losing. He stops Silent for being able to retreat and put himself in a better position. So basically, he uses Cold Embrace, and he realizes the teamfight's already lost as soon as the Ravage was used. And then he's like, oh, well actually we just have to run because we don't have any teamfight potential because Full Boss doesn't have Sphere. So we're basically just sacrificing ROD by using an ability that's meant to save him. There's definite misplay there from VP.
And you can see as well in that fight, Fly, he was trying to find an opening to use the Black Hole, but was very scared of VP's potential to cancel it. And obviously the fact that he didn't use it, even without it, they're still able to take those kind of engagements. So VP, they're just got to be very careful when they fight like that, as you said, into a lineup when they don't have all the tools online that they need to take a fight against OG. Like
it's cooldown driven, both teams. Like they need their ultimates up. That is when they are at their peak. And VP are the kind of team where if they take an inch, they want to just keep going. You know, they want to go for the mile. They want to take everything away from their opponent. So I can understand in that situation in particular why they want to go for everything, because if they do walk away from that team fight with a win, it pretty much secures the tier 1, puts them in a really good position after securing the Roshan a little bit earlier on. But at the end of the day, the decision to take the fight in the first place, I feel, was just not the right call.
And we've got to really give credit to Miracle at the moment. You can see on that net worth, 10.8k. He is over 2,000 ahead of Silence OD. SNY now down on top of the armlet with 1k gold in the bank. This could be the point where he just goes for that BKB to fight. We'll see if he opts for anything else, but as we talked about, that is the sensible option. The one allowed to run around VP and just cause absolute havoc in these fights. Albeit, of course, we've got to keep an eye out for VP's ults that will pierce the Mad community. It's OG, though. Here's their timing. They're smoked up, and they're ready to rock and roll. Moon, of course, the only one without the ultimate, but is back online in 5 seconds. And make a move into the jungle here. Maybe see if they can get a wraparound onto the top lane, where they will find Phobos hiding in the trees. You're going to see a TP out for Silent on his OD. Lil as well leaving the place, so does Phobos. They're aware that something's going down, and they're not going to get risk being caught out. They're on point there, but Phobos was already gone, and VP avoiding what could have been a very painful smoke.
Yeah, it was really nice awareness, just getting themselves out of a really bad position. And the other thing too, if we look at the vision right now, VP have the definite advantage. So there's no reason for them to take a team fight in a situation where they can't see anything. They obviously look at the side of the map of OG and say, okay, well they're all gone, probably smoked, all the lanes are being pushed in. We can just play around our own vision and make sure that we take the favorable engagement, or we can just go for a push, make OG react to us. Because as was also stated on the panel, OG's lineup is relatively immobile. Like, they have to walk as 5 to a lane, use ultimates to push towers. They don't have the ability really to split push that well. They don't have any heroes who have escape mechanisms really, unless you're going to be buying a Blink Dagger on a hero like the Enigma or the Tide Hunter. But it's getting to that stage where BP are going to have at least one more option than OG in terms of playing the game.
Initiation's coming online for OG. There's a blink on Miracle and also Moon at this point. And you got to give credit to Moon. 20 minutes in, he was a Tide that really didn't have the best of starts, but we're seeing him with a high net worth than DK Phobos' Void, and with the blink and drums online.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest strengths of OG is their ability to use the map when they're not actually in a team fight. Like, they always understand when they need to pressure, but if they're not pressuring, they have the utmost efficiency in the way they farm. So if you look at the network, that's kind of reflected in that. Like the Death Prophet, the Enigma, the Tide, they all have a decent amount, whereas only the Lina and the OD on the side of Virtus Pro have a good amount of farm on their side. So it's kind of a dual core as well.
Oh, with the wraparound blink onto G with the Ravage. Goodbye, Lina. 50 seconds on the sidelines thanks to Miracle with the power of the armlet. Absolutely destroying VP's mid. And now here comes the push into the base. Exorcism's there as well. The fortification coming out straight away from Virtus Pro, but still 40 seconds they've got to hold on with some sort of a defense without G's Lina. Silent coming forward. Astraling up, trying to do his best to slow this one down. FNG is going to move in with the Arctic Bat, but Moon, he moves it deeper, straight in onto the Wyvern. There's your ultimate onto Moon. Moon's incredibly tanky though, doesn't care. There's the Chrono to follow up with the Yules. Just in time, holding back the Void here. They can't quite kill anyone on the side of OG. They've got the mech as well. And OG, they'll take the tower, and they're still in fighting shape here.
I think that Silence actually won them the team fight. Like, I think Silent was about to cast his ultimate, but the Death Prophet silenced him right away, and at that point you really just can't do anything about it. So the Sphere being wasted here, OG still sieging high ground. G's up though.
Oh, Moon, look at this, man. He just jumps straight in every time. Lina is back in, so they're going to be aware of G. Jumping forward, they toss onto Moon. Silence coming forward, but Fly turns around with a Malefice. He'll Astral himself here, but OG maybe trying to get themselves in position for the fight in. Oh no! Oh, the black hole, it doesn't quite catch anyone here, but it might not matter. OG going to continue this one. Miracle got strength up. G's going to be kept fine by the cold embrace there. He's moving back in. 1, 2, goodbye G. A Miracle, he starts trying to work. Has he got the control? The Astral actually going to keep him alive over the time being. Silent is going to fall. He does get a double kill. He gets a triple kill as the burst there from the Astral brings down Miracle. Bo1 starts to help clean up, and in fact it's VP taking this one. Moon, the last one left alive. They've got the vision with the spirits. Bo1 jumping forward. They're looking to try and clean up OG. They might just be able to do it. Moon, he's falling low. He's falling fast. Bo1 jumps forward, gives it a 1 swipe, gives it a 2 swipe. He's going to need to give it a 3rd one. Moon's got the blink. Can he get himself out? He's going for the Jukes. He blinks to the north here. Moon, I think he's going to get away with this one as well. Are they going to find him? He doesn't have a TP. He's going to have to hold on for dear life, pray that they don't come looking for him. And it looks like he is going to be okay, but the rest of his team absolutely not. VP there with a huge fight. Silent with a massive triple kill. And OG, they've got to be careful. They don't get the racks.
Honestly, that blink out of Astral, I don't know if he didn't know he had blink or what, but that black hole was like super late. If you're gonna go for a black hole out of Astral, you always like cast it a half a second before it ends, just to make sure that stuff like that, you know, it doesn't happen. But unfortunately, that black hole whiff kind of just lost them the fight straight up. That's one of your biggest teamfight ultimates. Obviously, prior to that, they had committed the exorcism. It was down, so they didn't have that residual damage. It's just being dealt nonstop. Imagine if Miracle's just beating on somebody and they have Ghost going at the same time, or they have the black hole to just lock somebody down for a couple of seconds. That's just the difference between execution and, you know, VP just having the better team fight.
And we're seeing as well for the next team fight some very, very big items coming out for VP. Phobos, he's about 1600 away from the Aghanims. Silent on his OD, I think he's a recipe away from the BKB.
Oh, Miracle
mid lane jumping in here. Might have a bit of action. FNG, he's going to bring it brought to the side here by Lil, but Moon jumps up. Miracle tries to fight. He'll get held back here by the ult of the Winter Wyvern. Moon coming in, hitting against his own team. Miracle doesn't care. Moves it on to sign the Ravage. Do they have vision though? It doesn't look like they do. Silent actually pops the BKB, turns around, Astrals at Miracle. The rest of OG going down to the south. They've left Miracle. Are they going to come back and save him? Miracle doesn't need saving. He turns around. They've killed 2. Now he's leaving Lil. Tapping across, but the stun flies through here. Miracle moves in the Glimmer Cape, and the TP out here looks like he's going to be fine, and he will. Lil is able to escape, but Silent and G not as lucky. And we're seeing Miracle with this build, with the armlet, with the S and Y. This defender just does so much damage.
He does do an insane amount of damage, and prior to this, OG were going to go for Roche, but now, realizing that there's 2 cores dead, no buybacks, they're dealing a little bit of damage to the base here. I don't know if they want to fully commit to this. Moon and Miracle are about half HP. It's a really tense situation for VP. Looks like they will be able to respawn in time. It's going to be enough to make OG fall back. Roshan, see, this is a little bit tricky now because they don't have Exorcism for 90 seconds, and Ravage is pretty much on the same cooldown, whereas VP had everything. So now they could just go straight for Roche, and I think OG are going to have a really hard time contesting this. The only teamfight utility they're going to have is Black Hole and the God Strength from the Sven.
Now, Sven, Miracle just 500 away from the BKB. Full pipe now on Fly here for this next one. 12 to 10, 25 minutes in. It's still very close, but you've just got to look at that net worth, and you've got to look at Miracle Sven, and that's going to be a huge issue for VP. They need to do something about the Sven in these fights, and at the moment he's just been doing something about them. They'll go for Roshan here, VP. We saw them get away with it before. Looks like they should be able to do so as well again here, as OG not really in the neighborhood, so VP will be able to get this objective under their belt.
Yeah, that timing was just unfortunate for OG. They see an opportunity to take a team fight, and every team, when they see a chance to kill, you know, here like Silent, OD, okay, let's take him out. You know, he pops BKB, and honestly, popping the BKB in that situation wasn't really like necessary because he was already glimmered anyway, and they had no detection. He could have just walked away. But in the end, him dying actually ends up giving VP Roshan because of how many ultimates OG had to commit to making sure that they actually were going to win that fight. And again, because of the fact that No Tail wanted to take the Roche before the team fight anyway, so maybe it was just a little bit of miscommunication and Miracle wanting to go for something a little bit too greedy.
And talking about, well, Tide Hunter, we are going to see Moon going for their Aghanims this game.
Is this the first Aghanims tie that we've seen?
Are
we sure he's not just going for like
here at the major at least? Well, I wouldn't write it off, it's Moon. But I think Ags is more likely here if he goes point pistol first, or what would you say?
I'm actually... I'm kind of torn.
Okay.
I mean, I know that Aghanims has its use, but I think that Octarine is like... Octarine's kind of weird in this game. I would imagine if you were going to buy Octarine, you would just buy Refresher. We'll have to see.
Oh, VP smoked up here, and they are looking for the wraparound behind OG. Both teams have every single ultimate online, though. It's going to be a huge clash if it does kick off. OG still hanging around here, in between the tier 1 and the tier 2 pings coming out. So who's going to make the first jump? VP. I'm very apprehensive about this one. Pings are coming out in the mid. They see that no one is holding back that mid push, so they're the side of OG aware that VP are up to something sneaky. And indeed, that is why they're keeping themselves incredibly clumped up here. And maybe a little bit too clumped up for VP to do anything off the back of that smoke.
It's understandable. It's such a big risk, especially when they have tier 1 still. Like, there's so many things to hide behind if you're OG, and they're basically smoking into no vision. They did drop 1 ward a little while ago by the bottom rune, but only having a limited amount of vision when you know that the team fights are going to be so insane, like dealing with Exorcism, Ravage, Black Hole, all these things, it's just too much of a risk. Especially considering they just got a big objective, and OG are not going to feel as much incentive to try to do anything crazy in the next couple of minutes. I think it's a safer play to just try to push out lanes. If you go for a tower like tier 1 mid or tier 1 in the off lane, it's going to make OG want to contest you less, because fighting over a tier 1 at this point seems a little bit too risky for them. And I do feel like VP still have a pretty good chance in this game. It's just the longer the game goes, the more far Miracle gets. Like, good God, man, he has 5,000 more net worth than the next highest hero in the game.
This is classic Miracle. This is some really, really crazy stuff coming out from on the spam. But as you said, VP, they're very close to the big items now. I think G pretty much has got the Aghanims done, and Phobos is less than 400 away from his own. So we're going to see 2 pretty big Ags coming out for the side of VP. It's going to make the team fights that a little bit easier for them. And that is, of course, if they can find them. We've seen with a few smokes, VP just unable to find a great jump in onto the side of OG, as OG they've been playing very carefully, as in to not get caught out by the rotations of Virtus Pro. Motel, of course, with the Shivas complete. 1k on top of that one. And Miracle, the man of the moment. He's got 2.2k gold in the bank. Lots of options for him here. Do you think we're going to see the AC here, or is he going to go straight for kind of greedy damage for himself with the Crystallis into Daedalus?
I think going for damage is probably the best thing. Because,
can they go for this here? They'll set it up. Phobos is jumping forward. He pops down the Chrono to try and stop OG from saving it, but Crit, he still gets the swap off there. So it's only Crit caught in the Chrono. Crit, he might even just live through this one. So this is some big ults expended for VP, and we can't quite get the kill. Ravage from Moon catches 2, and now Miracle 1-2. FNG disintegrates there to the power of Sven's sword. They'll get Phobos as well. And VP, they saw the opportunity onto Miracle. I mean, if you could even call it an opportunity, because it just wasn't going to happen. They had Crit on the Venge right behind him, ready for the save, and 2 heroes down on VP. OG, they're ready to try and use the rest of this Exorcism to get pushing. They did, of course, have to use the Ravage for that one, but
they're more than okay
they do not care about that.
Yeah. I mean, the irony of that swap is Crit has more health than No Tail, so that Venge is tanky.
Alright, they're going to try and fire VP onto Moon. Silent starting to stack up the stolen intel. So now Tail's got the Siphon. They'll pop the ult here. Will bring down Moon, and that is going to be the gem going over to the side of Virtus Pro. The rest of OG on the way out. They've got the Atos onto No Tail. In fact, Silent could try and find more. Sets this up with the Astral G. He's going to look for the Light Strike to follow through, and it's a bit early on the timing there. Looks like it doesn't matter because Silent, well, he's OD. A couple of punches with the Arcane Orb. They'll get themselves the kill. So another one there off the back of that defense from VP. And still this game proving to be very close in these fights. But Miracle Sven lives on. 6-2-1. And 300 CS at the moment, 31 minutes into the game.
Seems like a standard Miracle game to me. I don't know about you. This guy just always gets farmed, no matter what the circumstance. He dies like 5 times in the first 20 minutes. Doesn't matter.
What did he end up picking up as well? He's on the courier at the moment.
What did he buy?
Oh, he's got a Reaver.
Maybe he's going for Satanic? Could be the item. It's pretty nice, I guess, but hard to use in these kind of games when, you know, you're probably going to get speared a bunch. There's also imprisonment. Your BKB is still pretty long, 9 seconds, so maybe the best to utilize it. He could also buy Heart, I suppose. The Heart Armlet combo is something that you used to see like way back in the day. Gives you a lot of health. The Armlet degen is offset by the Heart regen, and etc. Can be a pretty nice combination. Makes you insanely hard to burst, which I think is one of VP's best utilities in fighting, is the amount of damage that they can do in a short period of time. Like, it's perfect for synergizing with things like Chronosphere, because you can just kill a hero in the time that the sphere is put down. But VP, even when they take like the most awkward engagements, like fighting uphill into no vision, dropping a Winter's Curse and a Sphere on a hero with 2,500 health. Well, I guess 2,800 when he has Armlet toggled on, but it just seems like they can take a fight like that and then still defend. I don't know if that's a good thing for OG.
In terms of, as the game goes later, Silent on the OD, I mean, if he does start to get stacked, he can certainly kite and try and fight around the Sven, and they're going to be able to kill quite easily the other members of OG if they can find the positioning. But Sven's still going to be the issue, and well, there's a smoke up from OG here on the mid lane. VP just keeping themselves to each other on the high ground by the secret shop, and OG looks like they're even ready to just try and head into the base. There's no tower, of course, in the mid lane, and half the rack's gone. VP, they're keeping themselves well out of it at the moment. And it looks like, once again, one of these smokes where nothing's really going to be found in terms of kills. In terms of objectives, OG, they reveal themselves up in the top lane, and they'll just try and take down a second tier 2 here, which looks like they'll have no trouble doing here with the power-up Miracle.
VP just want to fight, man. They got Sanity's Eclipse up. Shiva's almost done on the OD. They will lose their tier 2 in the meantime, as you were talking about. Honestly, this game can still go either way. Like, OG have a bit of an advantage in the sense that their Sven has an enormous amount of farm, but he can still die. That's the scary part. And I don't know if relying on a Sven ultra late game against like potentially a Hex on the OD at one point, the amount of burst that Alina has.
Phobos, you can tell he wants to find a Chrono. And he's going to look for Notel, moves in with the time dilation. Set up there with the Eel Scepter, Notel turns around, gets the silence, and down Crit with a swap out. Miracle on the back lines, going on to FNG. Now turning for Phobos, the Ravage from Moon, catching 2 is a double kill for Miracle. Now Silent just one hit, a third of his health gone. And Astral himself here, and will get the blink off. He's in the sidelines, but they sure, oh, they're just the Exorcism Ghost, slowly killing Silent in the tree line. OG and now Lil as well, relocating back into the side of the fight, and OG, they'll be able to find this one as well, taking 4 heroes from the side of VP, only losing Crit on the bench. And at this point, I think that could be a fight too far, Andy, as OG, they're getting way out of hand.
That was just very nicely executed by OG. They had fantastic positioning, they had the high ground ward, they saw everything that VP were doing in terms of positioning. So the Void doesn't want to throw out Chronosphere on No-Tail, because if he does, the hero's just going to get swapped. And then pretty much the same thing is going to happen. Moon's going to counter-initiate, you're going to get Ravaged, they blow up the Void before he's even able to throw out his ability in the first place. And as soon as they get rid of Chronosphere, that's one of the biggest threats on VP. As soon as that hero dies, I think that OG feel confident in just walking in. Like, they didn't even have to burn Black Hole. They're going to get double racks here. There's still a tier 2 bottom. Miracle's going to eat a curse, but I don't think there's much to kill with.
Phobos has got a Chrono here, but Notel holding it with the Yules. Miracle pots the BKB, chokes onto G. Involuntarily walk back into the Chronosphere. He's not scared of the side of VP. G pops the Laguna out, but that's going to be G. Almost certainly going down. The Corner Embrace buying him some time, but the Spirit Cypher for Notel bites through the Lina. G is now dead, now Silent. Maybe he can look for the Chrono recovery kills. Gets the Atos out, now with the right click's going to take down Notel. Fly, he's going to be held in place there by the Astral. No TP away here for the Enigma. Now looks like they could just find something else off the back of this one, VP. They'll take the Enigma kill, double kill for Silent. So again, we see them finding some kills on the defense, but they're 2 full sets of ranks down now, Andy.
It's looking a little bit grim right now if you're a VP fan. And I still really think that their draft had an opportunity to do very well this game. I really like the way that FNG thought about it and just realized that if we have an equal amount of control and just 2 cores that deal ridiculous single target damage.
Oh, Miracle, please have mercy. Please have some mercy. There's no mercy.
There's no mercy.
There's absolutely no mercy.
No mercy at all.
He wants to find some more. Looks like Little's going to be fine. Phobos, on the other hand, if he comes down around the corner, Miracle. He's just a one-man army. Straight in. Hello, Phobos. How do you like my sword? Crit, swapping himself in so he can get the magic missile through. Looks like Phobos is going to be fine. In fact, Phobos jumping up, looking for the kill onto Crit here. Crit has the backup of Moon and Miracle, and
oh god!
Just he pops the Chrono. He's running around. He's just trying to keep himself alive here. Bless him, the Void. But I don't even know if that's going to be possible. Moon jumps in, and he Moon! Oh, that was BM Moon. We're firing that kid.
Yeah.
That was
that was rude.
Moon, come on. Oh dear.
Yeah, it's obviously OG's game to lose at this point. They're going to go for Roche, like we talked about earlier. The tier 2 in the bottom lane is still up, but man, VP, they were actually pretty close this game. There were a lot of opportunities for them to do well. They even got the first 2 Roshans. I want to say this is number 3, right? So this is cheese. And this should give OG enough, I think, to just go ahead and go for the Mega.
Oh, Miracle's got DD as well. And with the Eaton Moon Shards, 2.5k, what was it, 26,000 net worth. It's the Sven, man. The armlet build, perfect timing. It kind of just transitioned into this kind of mid-game beast that VP were unable to do anything about. And now Miracle, 37 minutes into the game, he's 3-shotting most of the heroes on the map for the side of VP. Let's see if they can pull it together for one final defense. Phobos is going to be back up in a few seconds. They've got the ults online. It hasn't quite been enough before, but maybe if they can find the perfect catch, they can hold on still. But it's going to be hard here. OG, of course, one of the teams that I think a lot of people wouldn't have expected to see in the lower bracket this early on in the tournament, and they're certainly showing why arguably they are going to be ready for the long run here and to ride themselves way back up to the finals potentially if they can keep up the play like this.
Yeah, you got to give credit to them, especially the way that they draft. I mean, it is so hard to play against the style that they play. I mean, they opened up with the Tide Enigma, which you could also say is, I think Secret running in the group stage is kind of EG-esque as well. A lot of the top teams are just running these lineups where it's just like mass 5-man Dota.
I think Secret's done it twice this tournament at least. EG certainly pulled out the Tide Enigma once. It's got a lot of popularity with the teams. I think Complexity as well, obviously, they've got very good Z-Freak, Enigma and Swindles with the decent Tide.
Yeah.
But I mean, quite interesting enough, I was speaking to Swindles, he does not like running the heroes together.
Really?
He says he finds it boring.
Well,
It's a very Swindle-esque comment.
yeah, but I mean,
I don't like that.
I understand
That's what
where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's very good. So if it wins you games, I think you can deal with it being a little bit boring.
I think so as well.
Yeah.
This game is certainly working out for OG. They're going to move in onto the bottom set of tier 3 and racks, and let's see what VP's answer is. They've got to do something big.
They're going to eat a mistake or 2 at this point. Like, having an Aegis on a hero is one thing, but also having the cheese, because VP's lineup is so reliant on burst damage, if you pop a cheese through burst and you don't die, and VP are kind of out of ammunition at that point, so it's going to be really rough for them to try to hold this.
Oh, Miracle, look at him. He's just sitting there. He is ready for blood. OG leading in, Moon with the Ags, throwing back the Gush, and FNG down in 2. There'll be a buyback here from the Wyvern, but Miracle running around, Phobos, looking for a Chrono, only catch up to No-Tail. Time to shot to Miracle, down the order of Atos. Maybe Sonic can do enough. The BKB coming out just in time. Moon gets the Ravage out here, but Silent, he's stacking up the intel. Can he do enough to bring this fire up? And a fly coming in with a black hole, bring it Silent. This Silent gets relocated out to the side. He's still trying to fight this one through, but 4 are dead, 5 are dead, as Lil's going to go down as well. There'll be a buyback from Silent on the OD, but he's the last man standing. BP, they needed a miracle, but they ended up getting destroyed by it. 28-15, GG is called an OG. That final fight there, nearly a 7k gold swing, even more so in the advantage of the Radiant, and Miracle Sven, it's not something that we see every day, not one of his most played heroes, but it's showing us there that he knows what to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a fantastic game, and the amount of farm that he got is pretty disgusting. Most of the time, OG prioritized him pretty heavily. Any hero that gets farm priority, Miracle is going to be on that, and just showcasing the strength of the Sven.
And in just this tournament, VP have shown themselves to actually potentially go much more mid to late game, where they used to be a lot more aggressive with Illidan.
OG's draft to me just looks like an EG draft at this point. It's, I mean, which is not too bad considering they usually beat Virtus Pro EG. I mean, they've had a bunch of close series in recent times, but it's been a match that EG has usually been favored in. And these 3 heroes together is something that EG did at Starlight. It's something that I think they did in this tournament as well. I remember at Starlight there were some nice plays where they were swapping. They kept killing Puck by swapping it into Black Hole, like sticky heroes. You can go for that way.
Well, now the Void pickup for Virtus Pro. What do you make of that hero lately? I
think it's like you have OD. You want something that will either save him, or you want something that'll set up for him, almost always. Like, I think OD, you need a hero like Oracle or something that has AoE, just a control factor, because you want to get as many free hits as you can before you pop the ulti. I think Faceless Void as well is one of the better high ground potential heroes in general. It's really difficult just to push into the Void, and I think for VP, this is pretty stable. It kind of tells OG, okay, no matter what happens, like maybe we get mid-game control with OD plus Faceless Void plus IO, but if we don't, we can backpedal, go for the late game, hold our high ground, because these three heroes independently are very good in the late game.
There's something interesting to me about these heroes, the same page of stability. I mean, I don't want to read too much into it, but Virtus.pro certainly, people on the panel have been criticizing the fact that they don't make plays all the time in this tournament, but we can't criticize their stability. They look perfectly stable to me.
We can see how stable they are in terms of their bans, if we're going to see the same things as we would expect from them. Virtus.pro taking on OG. The draft is on the way, and Virtus.pro's first ban is the Lone Druid, and I don't think that that comes as a big surprise, Blitz.
No, not at all. I don't think it's a hero that you want to give up, especially in a best of one. Because that's the scariest thing about a best of one is the way that captains think is they want to see the draft develop in a best of three and kind of see what happens in the internal meta of the best of three alone. But you don't get that opportunity in a match like this. You have to kind of immediately feel it out and execute your strategy pretty much blind.
Enchantress as well as the Earth Spirit, obviously they want to be able to keep that Earth Spirit out of the hands of Lil, though we did see the way that VP actually didn't immediately prioritize that Earth Spirit the last time they had the opportunity. They will be able to get the Wisp first pick. I do kind of want to go back to what Scan said, though, about VP. I was surprised if I originally placed some of my predictions. I would have had OG top 6 at least, and VP maybe making top 8, possibly top 6 run, but I actually felt pretty I didn't feel all that good about their run, where their performance here at this tournament has surprised me. They've actually
map and making it hectic and difficult for the Tide or the Enigma to set up. If you run into that lineup, like the Tide plus Enigma, it's really hard to team fight into, especially since most Enigmas just go for the same build, right? They're going to go for the early mech. Like one of those two will guaranteed get a mech, and that alone makes it really difficult to fight into because then VP has to decide, okay, do we get a mech carry of our own to battle into this? But I think the better solution is just avoid it altogether.
And you also got to try and make sure that even if you lose the fights when they cast their spells, try to minimize what the casualties are so that in between their big cooldowns, you can get a lot of value off the map, take down objectives, move around when they don't feel confident to actually close you out.
Funny thing is, I would have said that that if I hadn't seen VP the other day, that I would have said that this kind of opening from OG is actually really good versus VP because of the way that they're naturally aggressive, but you have so much potential team fight as well as high ground that OG always have that out, essentially, to be able to, if the game does go disastrous in the beginning, VP still have to go high ground. And I felt the same thing. It was the matchup. I was trying to find it. It was the matchup MVP Phoenix versus LGD. I thought that the playstyle that MVP showed us, the way LGD opened their matchup was Tidehunter and Disruptor. Wasn't really a big fan of the Disruptor, but it was that same kind of idea that the Enigma brings you, right? Which is a hard hero to push high ground against that gives you a lot of team fight potential. The problem is that both MVP Phoenix, they already showed they switched up their playstyle in that specific game, and then also been really stable with Silent, and I think that this is actually a potential new strength for VP.
We actually talked a little bit about this matchup yesterday when Virtus.pro was able to beat Vici Gaming in their first round of the lower bracket. And during that conversation, it was said that it would probably be preferable for Virtus.pro to go up against Team Secret because Team Secret would be less forgivable, or rather more forgivable for mistakes, and OG would be the one that would punish them harder. Now, we've seen OG today, and I want to just hear from you if that same sentiment is still standing, or if we're looking at OG as a whole different game here, whole different team.
I mean, OG was so on fire in the first game against Secret that Moon felt confident enough to just like do some trolling at the enemy fountain, planting some trees before the game ended. But then that same kind of confidence, I think, maybe led to some of the problems in the second game. So in terms of that kind of stability, it's different. If we look at this current draft, though, I think the opening 2 picks from OG is maybe like the most stable opener there is at the moment. And we've seen teams like EG and Secret running these drafts for years now. Enigma, Tidehunter, your move. And the enemy team, they make mistakes in any kind of team fight situation. They just get so punished for it. So from the start of the draft, I feel like OG have a safer and stabler looking position, and that's kind of scary if you're Virtus.pro for me. I don't know, Blitz, do you have like ideas about this Enigma Tide thing that most teams seem unable to beat? Like, what are you meant to do to beat this sort of setup?
I think the setup right now is pretty strong just because Enigma is really hard to punish in the jungle. Like, even Naha said, teams have to punish junglers, and I think PPD fired off a kind of sarcastic tweet where he's like, how? Like, tell me how then? And you know, what are you supposed to do when Enigma's just farming? You can't really play active past the map. You risk a lot trying to invade. But I think Tide Hunters, where you're going to get abusive, if you pick a carry that can go one-on-one against them, you take a carry that, like the PL in the other game, where it's a lot more difficult when the Tide Hunter just goes up against them. It was like, what is it, LGD versus MVP, where they had the safe lane OD, then eventually the two supports from MVP rotated, and then ROTK had a matchup where he was tied against OD. Like, what are you meant to do against that? And then you're looking in a pretty good position, because Tide Hunter can't really go anywhere. Like, you force him into the jungle, then your two supports get a lot of positioning. I think IO OD is a really stable opener as well.
Now, looking beyond the laning stage, you have got the teamfight potential with Tide Hunter and Enigma, and it is very strong. You also have the OD on the side of Virtus Pro, but you'd need a bit of extra kick in order to feel confident enough to actually take a 5-on-5 teamfight, I would imagine, if you're Virtus Pro. Which hero would you feel like that would fit with them, or would you suggest for them to basically skip teamfights altogether? Or rather, not draft as heavily for that and just go for pickoffs and split push, perhaps?
I think you just play the MVP hit and run style, where it looks like you're 5-manning repeatedly, but it's more just an illusion. Like, you take these little fights, you force OG to blow individual cooldowns, and then you just keep playing around the